Nsima, I'm transitioning.
Really? What do you mean?
Well, it's just I don't feel right anymore, and I think there's a better way I can express myself. So,
Whoa. What do you mean express yourself?
I don't know. It's just something that fits me better, you know, just like thinking about that.
Do your feet not feel right in your shoes?
I feel like my toes have been smashed in, and I'm trying to let them go. I want them to free. I want them to be open.
I think that's a great idea. So in this video, we're going to talk to you guys about how, actually, the Barefoot Sprinter here is going to talk to you guys about how to safely transition from wearing these to something like these, or to being barefoot all the time. Because as we talked about in the first video, and if you didn't see that, please go check that out. Your foot health is super important. You're probably fucking your feet.
Just as a quick recap from last time, there are three main categories of shoes. There's aesthetic shoes, which are just meant for dripping swagger. Is that what you said?
That drip.
Dripping swagger. There are competition shoes that are meant for specific output, specific things, so like cleats, basketball shoes, hiking shoes, etc. And then there are functional everyday training shoes. And so two of our favorites, Ultra and then Vivo, if you're looking for minimalist. So in that, there are three levels of healthy everyday training shoes that we want to encourage you to explore and spend most of your time in, 80 to 90% of your time in. Now, there are conventional shoes that are basically, they're functional conventional shoes. And so these are ones with a wide toe box, they're flexible, they're flat, but they have some padding underneath them. So this is always gonna be a great start. Then you get what are called a minimalist shoe. So it's flexible, it's wide in the toe box, and it's flat, but it also is thin, so you can feel the ground in them. And then you get what are the, I call them the Barefoot Maximalist shoes. So there's like the 5 finger, this is what I wear. I just happen to be barefoot today, ironically. But those are the Vivo 5 fingers. In the
Vibram
KS,
5 fingers.
The Vivos, the Vibram 5 fingers.
Yep.
My favorite brand, the KSO EVO, but then the V Alphas work as well. Those let your toes be toes and move, but then you also get the Jesus-inspired sandals that like the like Earth Runners, I think, are the brand that I have as well. So, you know, those are the three levels. So the question people have is like, okay, I kind of get it that maybe my foot doesn't look like this, and maybe it shouldn't be smashing those shoes, or I'm having pain, you know, turf toe, plantar fasciitis, metatarsalagia, shin splints, knee pain, calf strains, hamstring strains.
When you start to do more things barefoot, like Graham's known as being the barefoot sprinter. This man can sprint on all surfaces painless. But
even
if you
glass.
were even glass, even shards of glass.
And those heroin needles and dog poop that are always everywhere.
Steel feet, baby.
Yep.
Steel feet.
Can't hurt me.
But when you start to do things like this, if you're new to this, if you've been wearing shoes like this all your life, you're going to notice that your feet hurt. Andrew Zaragoza, who's one of the producer and other co-hosts of the podcast, has mentioned that when he's walked around with his bare feet on his kitchen floor, his feet would feel sensitive. They'd feel a bit of pain.
Yeah.
So if people are feeling sensitive feet, they can't even really run or jog on bare feet, what is the best way to transition into, I mean, not only being able to wear these and have physical activity, but being able to be like you with your bare feet on everything and feel strong?
So one of the things that's most important is there's two parts. Being patient with the process, because you have to actively get your feet to work again. So
remember, you're undoing decades of work.
Yes.
We got to put this in perspective.
Yes, decades of like sit down, shut up, being a shoe.
Yeah.
So that's why I got a whole program I walk people through and go through this process of like restoring your feet, getting them stronger again. But really, there's a 3-part process. First, you have to get your toes to move, then you have to get them stronger, and then you have to get the connective tissue to start to remodel. That's what builds the arch and gets your body strong and supportive again. Now, with this, it's not a race. We're not trying to do this as quick as possible. We're trying to do this as directly, as effectively, and as safely as possible, because if you go too quickly, we'll end up in pain, which is why it's never going to be a bad option just to take your time. So when I tell people that I go through this process, what I want you to think is, remember, there's 4 components of a good shoe: flat, flexible, wide in the toe box, and thin. Each of those serves as a vector. So if you can improve any of those, that's an improvement. So you go from one that's for example, this is a raised heel, it's narrow in the toe box, it's stiff, and it's not thin. This is going to be bad on all 4s. Then if you can go to something that's a step down, so for example, this is going to be, well, this is actually...
That's actually super fucking stiff.
Yeah, I hate Nikes. But you can go to something like an Ultra, which is generally my first step. So that's going to be, it's still got some padding underneath, but it's a wider toe box, it's flexible, decently flexible, and it's flat on the bottom.
So quick question. If somebody grabbed these and they're a little bit like, let's say it's a little bit too tough on them, do you think they should start with Ultras?
Yeah. In general, I would consider Ultras to be the best option from a generic, or not a generic, from a conventional shoe that still looks like all the other shoes, but still is functional and has padding, because this padding is going to get you some comfort underneath. It's not about support. You've been sold a lie that your feet need support. They are the support. All the pronation control, the arch support, all of this stuff that keeps your feet in a specific spot, those are all symptom treatments for weak feet, but they only ultimately weaken the feet further.
Yeah.
So Ultras tend to be the best option. They are ubiquitously a wider toe box. They are generally, as in terms of having a shoe with some padding underneath, they're going to be flatter. The Escalante, or I think the 2.5s what they're on, these are the Escalante, or the Solstice, or like those across the board, like start with those as a first step. Now, that's something.
Real quick, I want to add on. We had Aaron Horsching on the podcast. He
Yeah.
brought up some interesting research and studies that have been done on individuals who used orthotics, where they actually they analyzed the muscle tissue a few weeks after they installed the orthotics, and there was atrophy within the muscles of the arch.
Yeah.
So realize that when Graham says that your feet are becoming weaker when you wear shoes that are super supportive, he's not just saying that. Your muscles in your foot will atrophy because of these shoes if they're not already incredibly atrophied already.
Yeah. So that's why it's not just as simple as change your shoes or go run barefoot or change your running form. You have to do some strength work to get your body turned, like literally get your feet rebuilt underneath you. So it's with the shoes. The biggest thing I can ever encourage you to think about is that your shoes will never do for your foot what your foot should do for yourself. Like no shoe can fundamentally solve the weakness of your foot. You have to do that work around the shoe. It can help. The best thing a shoe can do is to not get in the way of your foot. But the shoe won't fix it. It can just get out of your way. And so that's what you want, is a shoe that lets your foot be a foot. So the first step is going to there, because this is going to give you some padding, and that's a buffer from a walking or running poorly. It still gives you some padding underneath while you build up strength. Once you have that down, if you want to continue to go down this path, remember, if you want to just stay there with some padding underneath, that's totally fine.
Don't be a little bitch.
I mean, you can. I would say the next optimal step to get to is something like a Vivo, because it is flat on the ground, it's flexible, it has the wide toe box, and it is thinner. The reason the thinness matters is because it lets you feel the ground, which lets you orient correctly based off the surface. And it also is not a high, if you step in something like this on a rock, you're gonna go, because this high inch increases the moment arm and the higher leverage on your ankle, and it puts all the force at one point, and that's when you have a higher likelihood of spraining. Much less likely to sprain here. The sacrifice is that it's much less comfortable. But the thing is, we want to choose shoes based off of function, not just comfort, because your body, it's not unlike if you go outside into a bright day, but you've been inside in a dark room all day. That's like you, this bright, oh my gosh, it's uncomfortable, but it is incredibly healthy for your eyes to get the light. And it also says that maybe you should be in light more throughout the day.
Let me add on to that real quick, because I want to talk about just real quick the transition aspect of wearing these shoes comfortably. When I first started wearing like these types of shoes, number one, they weren't very comfortable. Now they are comfortable since my feet are stronger, but they weren't extremely comfortable. The second thing is I started to develop a little bit of pain in my first metatarsal and in different parts of my foot. So what I did was I had a pair of Nikes at home that are like very supportive. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna wear these as much as I can. I'm gonna walk barefoot as much as I can. If the pain becomes a little bit just not good, I'm gonna go back and wear those Nikes that are super supportive, just so that my feet can have relief when I'm doing certain things. But I'm gonna work into wearing these, kind of like, I kind of looked at it like a resistance training routine or an exercise routine. You can't go hard every single day. You have to have days where you back off of the intensity of which you're doing the workout, so you can recover and continue to being able to progress. That's how I looked at wearing these.
And that's a great example. The one thing I don't love what people do is go back to the orthotics, because orthotic, there's a difference between a shoe with some padding or cushion, even a Nike, for example, that still, this is not great, but that still will let you bend, versus a plastic orthotic that's underneath your foot. If you are not currently in pain and you've just been wearing them for a while, there is no benefit or reason for you to wear those at all, because you're going to not just, there's a difference between resting and going backwards. So that's what, that's great, because the way you viewed that was, I'm going on this journey, I'm gonna get there, so just because I feel some pain or sensitivity, I'm loading new tissues with old movement patterns. So just keep that in mind as you do this. So that's the next step. So you go down and you do this, you will feel the ground more often, you will have less buffer. What this does, the ground is the best coach, because it forces you to walk, to run, and to move accurately. effectively, because you don't have as much like, oh, I could just step on anything and then not feel it. You will feel the ground more, but you have to be more intentional with how you walk, which is a great thing, because so much of the pain we have in our knees, our hips, and our back all comes from very heavy, jarring footsteps. If you know anybody that, hopefully not you, but that walks around the house and like it's like thudding. They're like a 115-pound girl that's like boom, 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 or like a kid. It's like, that's not really good for your body because you're slamming the ground. So instead, you want to walk softly. That's what these will teach you.
And dog, okay, again, the episode with Squat University is probably out, but we talk specifically about that. When an individual transitions to wearing barefoot shoes, most people that are wearing shoes like this, because there's so much padding, you are used to just, you can put pressure in this and not feel anything. But then once you start walking without those, once you start walking, well, when you walk barefoot, you'll automatically walk a little bit softer, but when you walk in something like this, you're gonna probably feel a little bit of pain in your knees, etc., because you're just used to fucking thudding yourself around.
Yeah.
So give yourself time to transition to this, because once you get there, your walking is gonna be better.
Yep.
Graham has all these programs on being able to run. Your running is gonna get better.
Yeah.
Everything's going to improve, but you need to give yourself your body the amount of time it needs to adapt to new movement patterns.
Yeah, and it's ironic. Actually, I have no programs on teach people to run. I teach people to use their feet, but running is what I like. It's ironic because it is the same thing. When your feet work correctly, you literally just shift into running. There's no coaching needed. It's just my feet work, and therefore I can do this. Like no one like, just teach a little bit of walking feedback and stuff, but that's like it's all wrapped in the same piece. So that's one of the pieces. I remember the first time I wore very minimalist shoes. I was like, is the ground always this hard? I was like, this feels like, I didn't realize the ground was this hard.
Yeah.
So if you want to continue, so this, something like a Vivo in this category 0 also functions in the same kind of minimalist space. Once you have that down, then if you want to continue, you get to the area what I call barefoot maximalist shoes. So those are shoes that like are literally the barest minimum, but they now let your toes move freely. So the Vibram, the 5 fingers are my preferred. I wear those all the time. The KSO EVO are the ones I like, but there's the V Alpha. Those are examples. Basically, it's the same idea of wearing toe socks. And even if you don't want to do that, you can still get that same benefit from wearing toe socks. I think Nsima's got them. Oh, little toe socks right there. Yep. So those create a proprioceptive feedback between your toes to kind of start to teach your brain that, hey, these are different digits. But the 5 finger can also work in that as well. And then in that category, you get the sandals that like wrap around your heel. I think I forget what they're called. But the Jesus inspired sandals.
Yeah.
Those let your toes spread and move. So in that case, again, you're letting the shoe will mirror and look more and more like a foot. You don't have to get to that point. I would say that of the 60 to 80% of the benefit goes from, or I'd say 60% of the benefit comes from wearing a shoe like an Ultra, just a big shift. The other 20 to 30% comes from wearing something like this, and that last 10 to 15% comes from a very maximalist shoe. It just depends on your goals. But obviously, ultimately the goal is to have your shoe allow your foot to get stronger and stronger so that you can do more and more of your life barefoot.
Yeah.
Because there is just something about tactily feeling the ground that is part of our ancestral heritage as animals, and you just can't get away from that. So in this, shoes are valuable, especially in the modern day environment we live in with this heroin needles and dog poop and all this stuff everywhere. I never get so many people worried about heroin needles and dog poop and glass and nails on the ground. And when I put up a video of me running barefoot, like, but what about the nails? I'm like, don't step on them. You know?
When I was a kid, I used to get scared because there was this thing going around the news that when you go to movie theaters, some people would leave AIDS needles on the seats. So I would always check the seats to make sure there were no AIDS needles. Anyway, that's a total beside. I want to add in too, guys, these shoes, these ones are the all-weather Primus Light 3s from Vivo, but they do have trail running shoes that have more of a bottom, because these bottoms are worn in the gym. They're pretty minimal. I wouldn't personally run in these. Graham probably could because he has some strong ass fucking feet, but they have some, I think they're called anyway, I'll tell the editor, and you can put them on the screen, but they have a bottom that's really good for running outside. And I run outside in those shoes. So you guys can check those out too.
Yeah. So ultimately, the last thing we'll say here is that when it comes to your shoes and transitioning, is that just because you're not in a training shoe, this same advantages, these same 4 vectors apply for things like competition shoes. So this is an old the Mark Bell CrossFit powerlifting shoe where you have a water toe box. It's flat. We could talk, there's a little bit of ankle support, which is just for under heavy loads, which can help for getting stability, but that's a whole different topic. It minimizes your mobility, but in specific situations, you have something you're trying to do. if you can maintain these elements in a shoe that also gives you those advantages, like a cleat that has a wider toe box, or a lifting shoe that has a wider toe box, like obviously the point of the lifting shoe is a raised heel. That's a specific advantage for squatting. But when you're running around like this or playing basketball, that raised heel does not help you. So like understand that there are things that inside a competition shoe that you can get, but you generally want a lower shoe that's thinner, that's wider in the toe box, that's flexible, until you have a specific piece. So like, for example, with cleats, most of the soccer cleats are horrible. They're literally just as like plastic pieces that don't move.
They fucked up my feet.
Yeah, that big your toes together. And people say, oh, I like them like that. Yeah, it's just because you wore them for 10 years, you don't know how to play without them. But something like a New Balance Burn or a Freeze, which is a lacrosse cleat, is pretty flexible and wider than toe box. It's still not great, but you can make better choices within them. But if you make choices, just think about those 4 vectors: flat, wide, thin, and flexible. Those are the big ones.
And for the powerlifters that watched, we had Dan Grigsby on, and he's just the powerlifter who just deadlifted 1,025 pounds. He did them in a pair of Vivos. Hunt Powerlifting is a friend of ours. Hopefully we'll be able to have him on at some point. But he's been wearing those for the past 5 years. They're great shoes for in the gym. And I do not want you guys to underestimate, even though these look kind of weird, these right here, these Njinji toe socks, and you can get yourself another brand. It doesn't matter. Right now, just from wearing these... Why are you, he's fingering my toes. Anyway, from wearing these socks right now and wearing them these past few days, my toes are more active because I'm getting that proprioceptive feedback.
Yep.
Because of the things in between the toes. So when I'm standing, I have a lot of activation that's happening and I'm not really thinking about it.
Yep.
These can be very, very helpful. This is just my end of one anecdotal idea.
End of 2, I'd agree.
And these can be so helpful in helping you feel what the toes are doing and keeping them fucking active.
Agreed.
And that's a big game changer.
Agreed.
It's just for fucking socks.
Yeah.
So if you choose not to get the Vivos, which we have a code for, and if you choose to wear these, get some toe socks. All right, and maybe I don't like how long they are, but roll them down, make them short, and it'll make a difference.
They have
for
no
you.
shows. Just get the no-show.
Get
The
the
one he
no-shows.
has are higher ankles. You don't have to do that. But it's like there are options. You do not have to get any of these, but anything you do to let your feet be feet and function will make you a better, stronger human. Remember, strong feet, strong hands, strong human, strong body, whatever you want to think.
If you guys have any questions about this, you can comment down below in the YouTube comments, right? You can go check out Graham. Where can they find you, the Foot Fetish Sprinter?
No, at TikTok and Instagram at the Barefoot Sprinter.
Not the Foot Fetish Sprinter?
No.
Okay,
no,
my bad.
That's my
the Barefoot
that's my
Sprinter.
OnlyFans.
Yeah.
And then the YouTube is just Graham Tuttle. So
Yeah, guys, he answers all DMs, which is better than me because I try, but he actually does. So if you guys have any questions, you guys can ask him because he knows all about your feet. You guys can send him foot pictures. I think he says you should DM him feet on Instagram and he'll send you a special message. I'm not even joking about that. That's just the truth.
Not like a special, just DM me feet. We'll talk about your feet. I might not send you a picture of my feet, but I might. Who knows?
You're such a little freak. Anyway, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This will change your life. Strength is never a weakness. Weakness is never a strength. I'm Nsima Inyang at Nsima Inyang on TikTok and Twitter. Catch y'all later.